Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support servers, blade systems, storage, as well as networking technology solutions from HPE. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management interface. Today we're going to continue on our conversation with SimpliVity. I'm going to focus in on the backup as well as the recovery of virtual machine data within the environment. So when I talk about that subject, right, this would be a slide that I would commonly use. And this speaks to the cross-platform capabilities within the environment. So we're going to focus in, like I said, on the file-based as well as the VM-based backup and recovery. But I think it's important to note the other resiliency factors within this SimpliVity environment. So first is node-based resiliency. So they use hardware-based RAID or redundant array of independent disks. So what this means is your data is protected by a grouping of disks within the environment where your data is stripped across in a redundant fashion. So you can lose one or even two, depending on the system, drives, and then stay up and running within the environment. There's other component-based resiliency within this environment, such as redundant power supplies. It's not only resilient at a node level or an appliance level, we're also resilient at a cluster level. Not only do we do hardware-based RAID, again, that's redundant array of independent disks, but we also do RAIN within the environment, or redundant array of independent nodes. So not only is our data stripped across drives in the environment, it's also protected by striping it across nodes within the environment, across the cluster. Right, so we also have the ability to do a federated environment that is taking multiple SimpliVity clusters and grouping together and performing site-to-site based replication. But I'm going to save that for another video. And again, we're going to focus in on the file as well as the VM or virtual machine based backup and recovery. So with all that being said, let's explore this management interface. Okay, here's my vSphere web client, and certainly I can tell it's a SimpliVity based solution because I can see the SimpliVity Federation icon over here. Now we're going to explore the backup policies because that's really what we're going to use to be able to protect our virtual machines within our environment. The best way to do that, or look at all those policies, is to go into that icon and then select backup policies. We can see all of them that exist within our environment. Now each one of these backup policies will have rules. We could tell the one backup policy that has the most rules is this guy here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that up. I'm actually going to edit that backup policy. Okay. Here are my 4 rules. So let's explore these rules. I could certainly create more rules just by going over here, selecting what type of backup I want to add into this environment, whether I want this to be local or to a separate cluster. So let's first look at this policy, or this rule within this policy. You can see I'm taking a backup every hour, and I'm retaining backups for 1 day. Right, so it's going to back up this virtual machine 24 times a day, and once it hits the 25th backup, it's going to delete the oldest backup within the environment. My next rule, down here, it's going to take a backup every day. It's going to retain those backups for 1 week. So I'm going to have a full copy of data for an entire week, and again, once I hit the 8th day, it's going to delete the oldest backup within this series. Right, so I'm keeping backups for a day, and I'm keeping them for a week. And if I go up even further, you can see this one is similar, so I'm taking a backup every day. I'm retaining them this time for a month, and again, I'm doing that on the local cluster. But if I look under the advanced settings, you'll see that I'm just taking this backup on Saturdays. So this would be my weekly backup, so I'm going to retain that. I have other things I can do with this environment, such as application consistency, which can include Microsoft VSS. So I'm using the days of the weeks button over here. So let me cancel this. Then let me go down to this rule. Let's open that up. So again, I'm taking 1 snap a day. I'm holding it on to one for 1 year. But again, if I look under advanced, I'm only taking this backup on the first day of the month. So that's a pretty comprehensive backup solution within my environment. Right? I have the ability to go back a great distance to be able to recover virtual machine data with that. Again, I'm not limited to just these. I could create backup rules however I wanted to. Again, I could create a rule that not only saved it locally, but maybe I wanted to save it to another SimpliVity cluster. We'll talk about that in another video. Now, these backup policies can be applied as far as volumes are concerned. So if I go down here to this VMFS volume and I right click on this data store, and I go down to SimpliVity Actions, you'll see Set Default Backup Policy. When I select that, you'll see I have my SimpliVity standard backup policy set. But I can certainly change that if I felt like it, or go in and create one if I felt like it. So once I set that on a data store, any virtual machine that's within that data store will assume that backup policy and start backing up immediately. So I can set them at a data store level. I could also set these backup policies at a virtual machine level. So for example, here's this virtual machine here. If I right click on it, go down to SimpliVity Backup Actions, you'll see that I have a set backup policy as well here. All right, so let's talk about how we can utilize these backup policies to protect our environment. So let's open up this virtual machine. All right, and in this virtual machine, you can see I have this folder, and in this folder I have this one file. Right, and we don't want to lose it. So let's say that somebody comes by, does just that, actually delete it. We'll also empty it out of the recycle bin. So now that's gone. Now on this system, you'll see I have the local disk as well as a DVD drive. So what's going to happen here is when we do this recovery, it's actually going to mount an ISO into this environment and put my file that I want to recover within that ISO. So let's go through that process. So let's take a look at where I'm going to see my backups within my environment. So certainly if I go look at a cluster level, I can go under Configure. Then if I scroll down, we'll see SimpliVity Search Backups. These are all the backups of the virtual machine within this cluster. It's a great variety. If I want to limit down the search, I could do a variety of things to get it exactly what I want. But again, we're looking at the entire cluster, and I'm actually interested in recovering a file from this virtual machine here. So if I select this virtual machine, and again, I'm going to go over to Configure. Here we have SimpliVity Search Backups. And these are all the backups of this virtual machine, this environment. So what I can do is take one of these, we'll right-click it, go down to Restore Files, click Next. Now this VMDK, if we open that up, it has two partitions. One is the tiny Windows partition that they create, but here is the much larger partition. And then we can see my important files. And again, there's my do not lose file. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to click Next. Then it's going to ask me where I want to mount this file. So I can restore it to the initial machine, the original machine, or I can pick any virtual machine within the SimpliVity cluster to be able to mount that. But we're just going to use the machine that we originally had the file on. I'm going to click Next, then Finish. And then we're going to go over to our virtual machine itself. And we can see that a disk opened up in this environment. I go reach into there. You'll see there's my file. I can right-click that, copy it, paste it back in its original folder. And like I had mentioned, this is an ISO that's been mounted to the DVD drive, so I just have to right-click and select Eject. Again, I've got my file back. All right, so that's file-based recovery. So what if I needed to recover an entire virtual machine? So we select this virtual machine here. Again, these are all the backups that exist for this virtual machine. I go under Summary. I'm going to launch a console into this environment. And what I'm going to do here is why don't we create a new file. Make a text document. And we'll open it up and put a little information in. All right, so there's some new data for this machine. So before I go and zap that virtual machine or delete it, let's take a backup of this virtual machine. Let's go down to SimpliVity Actions. You can see I could create an ad hoc backup. All right, so I'm not necessarily always reliant on the backups that exist within the environment. I can create them whenever I feel like it. And then again, I could set where I want to place this. And we're just going to set it on the local SimpliVity cluster. Click OK. Then we can see the backup happening down below. All right, so why don't we get rid of this virtual machine? So what I'm going to do is right-click, select Power, and then power this virtual machine off. And then let's delete this virtual machine. All right, so this virtual machine is completely gone. And now we want to recover it. So let's go up to our SimpliVity cluster. We see we're still under the Search SimpliVity Backups. And these are all the backups of all the virtual machines that exist in the environment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another search category in here. And what I want to select here is going to be the type. And we're going to do a manual backup. And I'm going to search those backups. See, we just have this one backup here. We're going to right-click, restore the virtual machine. And I have the ability to create a new virtual machine or replace an existing virtual machine, but since this one's gone, I'm going to need to create a new virtual machine. So let's highlight all that. Let's get rid of it so it has the original name. And then I'm going to click OK. And then we're going to recover that virtual machine. All right, we can see this virtual machine has been recovered. When I select it, we could see that we have HA lost sync. That just means that the redundant data bits need to be recopied within the SimpliVity environment. So it's safe to click Reset the Green. I'm going to right-click and power this guy on again. And then we'll open up a console. All right, our virtual machine is booted up, so let's log in. And we can see that our file still exists and the data is intact. All right, so we have the ability to be able to recover not only virtual machine files, but entire virtual machines within the environment based on the backup policies that I created. Now, I think it's also important to note if we go back and we look at a cluster level, and then we look under Monitor, we've got the SimpliVity capacity. Like we can see we're getting data efficiency about 37.7 to 1. And that's mainly based on deduplication within the environment. So my deduplicated information is about 31.6 to 1. That can mainly be found in local backups. So if I was doing full backups of the data within my environment, right, to a source offline to the SimpliVity environment, or using a traditional backup system, I would need something that would be able to handle 42.4 terabytes of data within the environment. But because the information in this environment is deduplicated, and most of the data, while we're backing things up, stays consistent or is mostly the same, except for a little bit of delta or information that changes over time, we get a tremendous amount of resiliency or backup capability within the environment. So we're able to utilize our storage more effectively as far as our SimpliVity environment is concerned. So out of my 5.2 terabytes that I have, I'm actually only utilizing 1.2 terabytes, but within that, I have 42.4 terabytes of backed up virtual machines within the environment. So that's backup and recovery within a SimpliVity environment. I hope you found this video informative, and please stay tuned for more videos.